What was your experience like at the school?
Well, my experience at this school goes back to actually being built. Because I've actually been at this school starting at kindergarten, and then in second grade I was at the old school watching them build this school. Then I came back to be a third grade teacher and got the chance to teach with my third grade teacher for a year. So I have kind of gone from green boards to whiteboards to Chromebooks. So I've had quite a few years experience here.
Did you find the school well integrated into a greater community beyond the school?
I think so, partly because we are a downtown school, and so we worked a lot with the community. I remember some times when we actually did parades going down the streets and that of businesses. So, and we would often have guest speakers come in, students' parents would come and talk to us. So I think it was fairly well integrated into the community.
What was your student life like?
I would say it was a lot different than what your life is like. Like I said, I go back to when we had green boards at school. I can remember recess where they played music and we danced to music out on the playground. I can remember school picnics when we would march downtown and come back, and we would be released to go to the picnic on the school grounds. So my experience is probably quite a bit different than yours, certainly before computers and before e-learning.
How was the bond between you and the faculty at the schools?
I would think it was probably similar to most students with their teachers. The time that I was here, we basically had nuns and lay teachers. So it was a little bit different relating to nuns, sisters, and that, you know, because they dressed differently than we did, and I think in some cases they probably held us to a little bit higher standards, encouraged us to try a little bit harder. Just like with students nowadays, there were particular teachers that, you know, you would hear about. I come from a time when you had 2 classes of each grade. And so maybe you didn't end up with the teacher that, you know, everybody said, oh, they're going to really make you work hard learning your multiplication tables, or watch it, you're really going to have to study English. So, but I think, it was probably a little bit different than what yours is, but I believe I got a really good foundation education to prepare me for the real world.
What was your class size?
We probably had about 30 students per class. Like I said, we had 2 classes of each grade, and I would think there was about 30 of us. And we sat in smaller desks and all that. We didn't have near the space walking around. Of course, you were in a pandemic. You were in a different time than we were too. But same size classroom, just a lot more kids. So.
How often did you go to church?
I would recall that we went to church, I think, I'd like to say that we went every morning, but I could be misremembering that. But I do know that we went a couple of times a week. I can remember when I was older that we had church, and then some of us would go over to the bakery across the street, Bruno's Bakery, and get donuts and bring them back. And we would be sitting in class having breakfast, because at that time, rules were different as far as fasting before communion. And so you really hadn't had anything to eat for quite some time. So, of course, nowadays that's totally different. By the time you get up and get your breakfast and get to school and that, you've already got your hour in. So, again, rules change, times change. I liked going to church. I will tell you that as a teacher, some of my best bulletin board ideas and ideas for teaching a particular subject came while I was sitting there in church.
If you can remember, what was your favorite teacher?
I don't know that I necessarily had a favorite teacher because every teacher was a little bit different. I thought it was interesting that when I was here in kindergarten, our kindergarten teacher had a name that they thought would be too hard for us to pronounce. So we called her Miss Eleanor. When I came back here to teach, Miss Eleanor had moved up to 2nd grade and she was Mrs. Columbera. And so that was kind of interesting that I actually got to teach several years with my former kindergarten teacher. So, but they were all special in their own way. There were some of them you remember because they were harder on you than others, you know, or you thought they were harder on you than others. But no, I enjoyed all of them. They were all good.
Do you have any favorite stories from your time at St. Peter and Paul?
Favorite stories? Gee, well, I was going to say, like I said, I do remember us at recess time, and sometimes they would play records that had exercises on them. Sometimes we would be doing dances. I remember, I think it was Fridays, they would come around with a can. It was like a lard can this tall. They called it the candy can, and you could buy candy here at school. And I remember Mission Babies. Right now it's Lent season, so you are saving your money up in your rice bowl and that. At one time, Holy Childhood had it where if your class got $5, that you could adopt a mission baby, which meant that someplace in one of these other countries there was a baby with the name you had picked out, and that was your mission baby. I remember school picnic, which you guys really have no memory of because it's kind of gone by the wayside, but I remember when we would march behind banners down the street. And I remember being really excited because 8th grade had a special banner. They had graduate dolls on it and everything. And that was one of the things because they kept that one from year to year, and I would see it in the closet at times. And I got excited about the idea that, boy, when I got to be in 8th grade, we were going to be marching down the street here in Collinsville, and they were going to see us behind that banner. Well, if I recall correctly, I believe some of the boys in our class decided that they didn't want to march down the street. And the upshot of the whole thing was that the class didn't march down the street. So I never got a chance to march down the street behind my 8th grade banner. And that was most disappointing to me. So, yeah, lots of good times, lots of cool stuff. I do remember 2nd grade watching out the window building this school. So maybe I wasn't the best student in 2nd grade because they had these nice big windows and I could watch them building this place. So it was ready for me when I came into 3rd grade in the room that Mrs. Popacek now has. That was my 3rd grade classroom. So, yeah.
Thank you, Mrs. Laswell, for taking the time to talk to us.
Well, thank you so much. This has been nice to kind of think back over the time that I have been here and see how things have changed. And I appreciate both of you taking the time to do this. So I hope your time here too, you will look back on as being well spent and that you got a really good education. So.